Every time you see me getting bigger and bigger, because I am. Bright ass damn light. Not that we're gonna turn the light back up. I like that a little bit. I like that brightness. As we prepare and wait for it to fill up a little bit so we can get to the topics, and got some good news, got classes coming up, got a lot of stuff coming in. Wait for us to fill up a little bit before I get to that. Because I got a habit of going in. The doors, projecting a false sense of innocence. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been getting into that deep aspects, understanding that shadow work. That's everything that we're getting into, that imagination, that entire part of ourselves, really dealing with ourselves in that space, on that level. Over the last couple of weeks, especially over the last couple of weeks, I have been, first thing that I've been putting together is the class for this, the human design. Because the more and more, like, every time I just keep reading back, looking at the human design, I'm like, wait, the human design are the channels. That's the emotional channels. So that's the emotional makeup. Everything down here is meant for us to use to put us into that work, into that next level. But you can't see certain things. And I was thinking about it because I was having a conversation with somebody earlier this week. And we were talking, and they were like, how do you just, and their question to me was like, how do you just seem to go? Like, you just seem to be able to go. I was like, and I explained it to him. I was like, the key is there's nothing, I have nothing there. I don't take anything into that space. And for us, understanding our growth in our space is this projection of our innocence, or this projection of our morality, or trying to stay a certain way or stay a certain mindset. We every time you're going into a space, every time, because we see the same things every single day. And I actually had a conversation before I went to go pick up some stuff today. I had a 30-minute conversation with somebody in a parking lot for no reason. And the thought process to me, peace. The thing that came to me in my thoughts, I was like, you have to want this. You have to want this for yourself. You can, similar to me being vegan. The reason that I'm plant-based, the reason that I'm vegan is defined and simplified. And I remember we talked about that last week. The things that I do are simplified to me. Everything that you take into a space is what you're going to have to deal with in that space. There is the handicap that you came down here with is what you set up for you to have to do your work. That's that handicap. That's that crutch. That's that other aspect of you that you're getting to. So there's this becoming aware in this mindset. Becoming aware is, what are you aware of? And I've asked people that question before. And they'll be like, I'm aware of the injustices to our people, and the injustice to this, and how we weren't taught this, and this, and this, and this. And before, I'd be like, when I was first coming into my work, first coming into my aspects, before I went internally, And I was just using them. We all motherfuckers use them as catchphrases. I was like, so what's your plan? What's your directive to actually do some shit? I never could ask that question. Now for me now is like, what I can ask you this question. What like the injustices to our people? Okay. For me now, it's like, no, it's the same dance because it's not the external, because we say the external is an illusion. We program it, we put it together. I've talked about it before. You're the programmer, you're the gatekeeper. Everything that comes into your space is based on the frequency of what you went into it, your emotional content, the emotions that you went into it with. If you have not dealt with certain aspects and you go into a space where others have not dealt with their aspects, then guess what? Everybody connect. Everything naturally is going to create either a connection or an attachment based on the emotional frequency. Everything's going to, connection is just, oh shit. Connection, you feel empowered. Attachment, you always feel drained after you're done doing it. I can go out a whole day by myself and enjoy it. But the moment I used to go around certain individuals and take them around me throughout the day, like I felt at the end of the day that I would be, why am I so tired? Why am I drained? Why do I feel like this? But if I did this same shit by myself, I don't feel this way. I feel more energized by the time I'm done at the end of the day. It's all based in those doors. In our minds, we have created doors, those pathways. Each one of these pathways that we created it for a purpose to put something behind it. That's what you create a door for. It doesn't matter what you put in front of the door, that door is still present. You can put a keep out sign on the front of the door. Okay, cool. Somebody's going to read it. Somebody's going to step and be like, ooh, what is keep out? Fuck that keep out. I'm about to go in there. Regardless of whatever you put on the door, eventually that door that you put up, you're going to have to deal with. You can watch any fucking Supernatural, any fucking they always tell you about that door. Don't go behind the red door. Like on the originals, don't go behind the red door. That's my worst horrific things about my life. But you're always going to go back to that door. Just because you told everybody not to go there, you know that it's there. You know that it's present. Therefore, you're always going to protect that door. You're always going to go into the space with that hidden, with that unseen. You're always going to go into that space with something unseen, something unheard, something undealt with, that emotional, that event that happened to you that you don't like talking about. That is what your imagination pulls from to create your space. That is what your imagination pulls from to create your environment. That's where it pulls from. So think about it think about that entire wave to the next time you actually start thinking about certain things. It's like, I can react to this. We're so used to reacting. We're so used to trying to react. We're innocent. We don't deserve this. And all of these things. It's not about this good or bad. It's about positive and negative in that polarity. It's about what are you creating? You're pulling it from somewhere. When we think about this, they're creating vaccines. Nothing can really be created in that space because it's all being pulled from somewhere. Where is it being pulled from? It's being pulled usually from what it's being triggered from. We've seen the same old song and dance for the last upteen motherfucking years, decades, centuries. We've seen the same song and dance. They show you something, you react to it, then you go stand and want to fight against it, protest against it, then they stop doing it, then they bring something else in, and it just keeps going along down the line. You come into this space, ooh, I'm a God, I'm love, I'm all of this, I'm light, I'm peace, I'm all of this. Let me give you a key. The light is the projection. Sustaining the light is why you keep reacting. You only react when you're trying to sustain the light. You're only reacting when you're trying to sustain the light. That's all. That's what the light is. Everything outside of you that you see in your face, that is of the light. that is of the light. So as long as you're trying to sustain this old light by trying to keep everything, no, because most people, you just like, it's that hiding factor. It's the hiding factor. You're not dealing with these emotions. You're imitating aspects. If I imitate this long enough, then eventually I'll become it. That's no. Imitation simply is imitation. That's simplified. Imitation is simply imitation. You imitate based on, even when you're imitating something, what is your energy being put into that space to imitate it? I can imitate workout videos all day, or like look at workout videos all day and imitate and do everything that the workout video says. But at the end of the day, if I'm not doing the other aspects internally, I'll never get to that point. I'll never amount to that point. That is just a principle for me to learn. How can I apply this to me? What do I have to deal with? One of the main doors that we have to deal with in our internal work and healing, we're going to get into this tonight. I got the human design. We're going to tap into a little bit of the Gnostic education book. I've shown this book before, but for the first timers, the Gnostic education, the learn how to think, not what to think. Very good book. There's a chapter in here about imitation I'm going to read from, a little excerpt from it. And then there's a line inside this book right here that I've shown people before, Revolutionary Psychology. And I just dropped the book on the floor and it opened up to this page. It's page 185 in this book. If you have it, you can follow along. And it says, the permanent center of gravity. It is impossible to have continuity of purpose without true individuality. Therefore, if the psychological individual does not exist, if many persons live within each one of us, and there's no responsible person within, it would be an absurdity to demand continuity of purpose for someone. We gonna mark that page. At a point in time in your life, you have to take some form of responsibility. At a point in time in your life, you have to take a point of responsibility. You cannot continuously keep moving the way that you can. Let me make this right. You can continue moving the way that you're moving, but you will always receive what you're receiving. Remember, we talked about behavior, that timeline, the emotions or the timeline, the behavior submits your behavior of the timeline. So they become that channel that you now moving on. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. You can do it based in fear. You always have to maintain a level of fear in your life because you're always looking for balance. Everything must balance out naturally. Everything naturally balances out. When you understand the laws and you apply the laws, you understand everything moves in that continuity, and everything is going to be moving as it needs to move. Everything is going to be finding a way to balance itself out, to show what needs to be shown. The contradiction, whoa, that was crazy. The contradiction is your answer to challenge behavior. So we have to think in this, when we're thinking in this manner in our healing process, in our ongoing shadow work, internalizing, learning ourselves, bringing ourselves into this, bringing ourselves into our unity with ourselves before we can even think. We think in a fragmented sense. We think in this fragmented sense. So because of the multiple eyes that are within us, and then we allow ourselves to react. Everything outside of you basically is being sold to you based on your trauma, or to create an implant that is already present in your current state. In your current state, it's already implanted. They don't have to, the program is like the post aspect externally to keep you reacting to it. If it's happening inside of my head is making me react, that's on my heart that's giving it its power. I just naturally give my power away. I'm a God, I'm a God, I'm a God, I'm a God, I'm a goddess. I'm a higher being, I'm a higher level, I'm all love and light. Okay, you are a projection of what? What is your love and light of? What is your love and light of? My people, my people, my people. What is your love and light of? Your light must come from somewhere. Your light is coming from within. So where is your light coming from? What is your love and light? We have to stop putting ourselves into these boxes or categories to feel good. We have to stop putting ourselves in these. I stopped a long time ago putting myself in these boxes and categories to feel good, to feel all right, to make myself feel okay. Yeah, it's cool, like, and run that wave, that identity. A lot of this becomes just because of the things that I wasn't dealing with. It was always something I was not dealing with. Every time, like similar to like, use a cool example. You go to your job. You had a bad day at the house, you're gonna have a bad day at work. You have a good day at the house, you have a good day at work. Don't nothing bother you. Why? Because internally, your house, representing your sanctuary, it was in place, it was in peace, it was in balance. Yeah. It was in balance, it was in peace. Therefore, when I walk outside of my door, everything should be in balance and peace. Here's the other key to that. Here's the other half. Everything down here to help you learn some shit. Everything's down here to help you learn. Everything's down here to help you master some things. Every time you get triggered by something and you're not pulling from any, it's pulling from somewhere. Until you learn what you're reacting to and why you're reacting to it, you're kind of going to keep reacting to the same shit every fucking time. Like I dropped the post earlier today. I forgot I made the bitch only me, but I made it public. And I was like, every time people want to react to, every time they get black, it gets blacker and blacker. Okay, cool. What are you being triggered by? Maybe you should go study that about yourself. Not the identity, but you. Like, you've been the identity of black, you being an American Negro, as an example, has only been in play for 157 years. When I read it 2 years ago, it was 155 years. It's been 2 years. It's been 157 years since you've taken on the title of being black, a Negro. So what were you before then? It's been 400 years. It's been 400 years they oppressed us. It hasn't been 400 years. Because it says 400 years they oppressed black people. Black people have only existed for 100. The title of being black, that title for you was only lasted for 157 years. So you've only been locked down, even in that sense, for 157 years. But you just ran with it because it fit the identity. It fit the identity of being black. If I don't agree to this, then what am I really? Oh shit, I gotta go find myself for real. This is what happens a lot of times based on those doors that you're trying to keep hiding behind. I talked about that before in a previous lecture, where I was like, everybody going to go do a protest, everybody at that protest is going to that protest for a different reason. Everybody going to that protest for a different reason. The mother's going there. The woman that's going there is because the protest of a little girl is missing. Is because she was left up missing and gone in some shape or form. These are the thought processes of challenging becoming the contradiction. You're becoming that contradiction. You shouldn't fit. You've never really fit. The only thing that fit was the identity that you took on to fit within that space. If I don't fit those spaces anymore. So therefore, why would they cease to exist to me? I'm not talking to, when I say these types of things, I'm not speaking from a space of, if you like up the street and you seeing you seeing a van and a little girl getting snatched up, or you seeing somebody getting done. I'm not saying do not intervene as you feel that you need to intervene. I'm speaking from a level of, as Bobby Hemmett said, once it's on the news, it's based in the government, i.e. the behavioral system or a behavioral structure to keep you reacting. So once it's on TV, it's out of my hands once it's on. For me, it's like, it's out of my hands once it's on TV. Okay. Because only thing that's going to happen is the same exact thing. Because I keep reacting the same exact way. I remember being this in the overall circumference of this, being in certain spaces. I noticed that it always happened the same exact way. Same shit happened. Every once in a while, something didn't happen. But after a while, it was like, why do I keep putting myself in this position? What for? Why do I keep putting myself here? Because I'm afraid I'm not going to be accepted. It always goes back to that emotional wound. It always goes back to something you have not dealt with. It always goes to a certain channel. It always goes to a channel within your design. Your design, it's all a part of your design. It's all in helping you unlock your design. In your human design chart, there are the open defined areas, then there are the undefined areas. The undefined areas in your chart are the things that you're going to be learning in this cycle. The undefined things, the undefined spaces inside of your chart, for example, we have flipped to a page. I want to get to a good page I wanted to get to. And open to the page I want. There it goes. Like, for example, some of us, there's actually a channel designed for survival. The perfected form. Find it, actually defining yourself. Personal. For example, as you let your deeply intuitive impulses guide your behaviors moment by moment, you are automatically release unfounded fears for the future, fears that can help you form fully loving yourself and embracing your life. You embody the potential to move through the world unsuccumbed, the ability to think on your feet, spontaneously perfects your form, perfectly ensuring your survival in the now. Interpersonal, person with a channel of perfected form, here how to create what they love. So there's levels to these emotional channels. So the things that are happening to you, they're by your design. This is the depth into this. The things that are happening to you are for and by your design. You put together that contract. You put together this contract so you could do the things that are necessary, and you needed these experiences outside. These experiences that have been created outside of you are based on those triggers. One habit or emotional trigger for you, some of the things you've already done. Whenever you're triggered by something and you feel like you cannot make that work anymore, I'm giving an example. For an example, let's say in this life cycle, you can't have kids and you're emotionally triggered by not having children. It's because you've already mastered all of the kids, all of the children that you're ever going to have. That's not your purpose in this cycle. You're not meant to birth anything in that physical conduit. It's a traumatic event. I can't have children. Oh my goodness. And this, and this, and going through this process in that same light, now it's like, oh, now I kind of understand. but I'm good at creating this. I'm good at making businesses happen. I'm good at creating products. I'm good at doing this, this, and this. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're always going to be led to, you've always had your purpose, and here's the thing about your purpose. You've always been doing what you have been supposed to do. It's always came up. It's always come up. You've always led to it. It came to you in the greatest forms. It came into you during the most horrible forms of pain and the struggle and the survival and the oppression and all of that shit. It came to you then and you mastered it. Now it's time to take it outside of that pain. Now it's time to take it outside of what contradicts to the reason based on reaction. Now you're learning how to respond. A lot of the things that we get stuck in is because we have not learned yet how to respond. We only know how to react. That means we only want to do it. We only know how to do it. Similar when you listen to your inner child only wants to do something. Your inner child only wants to do something based on the benefit of attention. You only want to do certain things based on this benefit of attention. That's the reaction process. So we get stuck in this, I'm going to keep reacting the same exact way to the same exact things. And then when something comes into my space, then if it doesn't allow me to manipulate it, because that's what you're doing, if it doesn't allow me to manipulate it or possess it, then fine, I'm going to go right back to my square one. That's one of the number one reasons a lot of people are in the space that you're in, because you go into the space, what you take into the space is shown to you inside the space, but you're not wanting to deal with it. You're not ready to deal with it. It's a byproduct. Nah, that can't be it. I need someone to do this for me. Love me for me. How can someone love you for you when you don't even know you? Every relationship that you came into had the exact answer that you needed. It's just the things that you defined that they weren't doing in that case. That's what took that out. It took it out of the picture. Everything that you came into. That's why you have people that be like, this is the love of my life. This is the love of my life. And this is the love of my life. And they say that shit every month. They got a new love of their life. It's because inside of each one of these people, they found something or they feel something that they have not yet defined inside of themselves. They're still in a state of avoidance. When we take this on a grander scale, when we're not trying to accept things and we're trying to be this innocence of aspects, so we want to deny what we have, we want to deny what we pulled in, what we created, because we're still looking at it as good or bad. And we're not looking at it as, oh my God, yeah, I did create that. I can see how I added my energy to that, because that's all you're doing is putting your energy into it. You upset because they took away gas. But are you really upset because the gas line got shut down and everybody was working gas? Or now you're upset because the $5, the $10, the $20 that you put in your tank at a time to bring your tank up to half is not going to be enough. And now you don't know when you're going to be able to put gas back in your tank because you got comfortable. Everything that's happening to you is shaking you out of that fucking comfort zone. When I started looking at things as everything is knocking me out of my comfort zone and really started taking ownership, I wasn't going to do this anyway. I wasn't going to do that anyway. When I really got honest with myself, that's when things actually started to make more sense. I wasn't in the same, my chain of thought changed. My behavior, I was addressing my behavior. 98% of the shit that I did that happened to me was based on something that I did that led to that point. Once I started accepting that small little factor, I really started looking at things differently. Because before that point, I was blaming it on everything. I was blaming shit on the economy. We blame shit on the economy. We blame shit on the white man did this. We blame shit on their this and we're that. But at the same time, I'm looking at like, I just started thinking about things and really looking at things differently. And I was like, so niggas is mad at white people and organ harvesting and shit of that nature. I had that thought the other day. I was like, if they only can feed at a certain level of rate, that means they only can feed through fear, the lower behaviors. They only can feed through that. The chlorophyll that's in the bloodstream that pumps fear basically out of the body. And they only feed based on fear. And all of my organs are connected to, all of my organs are created, can create elixirs within my body based on my frequency. So I read on that frequencies. And if I change my frequency of my body to where it's no longer valuable to or susceptible to lower energies, then my body would become unvaluable to whoever wants to try to get at my, tap into my, use my energy. So if I keep applying this method to my thought process and start applying this to myself, then whenever it comes up, I'm really not worried about it. It really doesn't faze me. Therefore, does it really exist? This is the thought. This is just that thought process of you tinkering and you're finding the contradictions. As an occultist and as a psychologist, this is what I do. I look for the contradictions. I look for the stream of that answer, that stream of thought. When you're doing into your shadow work, you're not looking for this surface ass answer to make you feel good. You're looking for the things to explore to actually get you to become better, to change everything, to change that emotional, to change the behavior, not just the surface level. Well, no, you're not, we're going beyond the fucking surface. You have to really go within. It's about going within yourself and really dealing with those aspects that you haven't dealt with yet. You triggered by missing children. When the last time you had a conversation with your inner child? You mad because you upset? Are you upset at Serena Williams for not accepting herself and all of that shit? Or do you have some underlying mother issues that you haven't had, some maternal wounds you haven't dealt with? Are you really upset at how Future acts or at Kevin Samuels? Or are you mad because your daddy wasn't there? Like, you really gotta, when you're looking at these things, instead of you looking at it from this space of, see, everything's against us and they don't understand our power. They don't have to understand your fucking power. In the greater scape of it, everything outside of you understands your fucking power. That's how they're able to manipulate your power every fucking day through the emotional aspect. Black people love to sell fucking trauma. Everything on a mainstream scale of black people love to sell fucking trauma. They love to remind you that you're struggling. They love to remind you that you came from oppression. They love to remind you that they love to remind you of 400 years of slave. And you buy into it. Yeah, we came from that, because it helps you, because you're thinking about collective and consciousness, and you think about the family you never had. You thinking about the family you didn't have. You think about the family you didn't have. So you looking for something to feel a part of. You looking for something ooh, yeah, I'm gonna go join this group over here because they talking about doing this, and this. Okay. Maybe you might need that. That's why I tell people all the time, like, maybe you may need to be a part of a group for a little bit, but don't lose the focus on you. Maybe you might need to go join that group. Sure, maybe that might be a part of your path. I can't tell you that. Only thing I can give you is like, all right, cool, let's deal with these internal wounds. That's what I do. Let's work with the internal wounds. Let's deal with these wounds real quick. Let's deal with that daddy. Let's deal with those father issues and that generational aspect of where your father and your father's father and your father's 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 father and your great great grandfather in your past life regression reading, your great great grandfather did something. And then since he did that, it set the whole course of action for what your father's doing based in that design. Because until you deal with those aspects, you're only going to keep doing the same exact thing. You're only going to react the same exact way until you have understood it into yourself and actually turned those aspects off and turn your higher self on, and you start working in your higher self and really start working in that and stop looking at this surface level of shit like, ooh, beads, frequencies, crystals, everything that's in the light the light is actually enhanced as a projection by the shadow. So it don't matter how many shits you want to, oh yeah, I went and got this, this, and this, so I should be good. So you depending on this labradorite, or you depending on that tiger stone to be protected, be your protection. It's an enhancement. Everything down here is only an enhancement. It's meant to enhance you. It's not meant for you to meant for you to become attached to it. If you're getting attached to things and trying to say, okay, this is what's going to help me get to this, you still have some attachment issues. That's what it's showing you. That's what I'm here to see. I can tell when somebody's wounded. I can tell when somebody got some emotional wounds and got some shit to deal with. It's not my job to be like, no, but you got to do, no. I'm going to allow them to come into the space. They're going to get to a point. They're going to react emotionally. I'm going to ask them a question. 9 times out of 10, the question leads to the next question, leads to the next question. By the end of the session, they're like, damn, I never thought about this, or I never thought about it. The whole streamline is like, it's okay, sis. You've never really thought before. It's all right, bro. You've never really thought before. We're going from what to think to how to think. When you're based in that how to think or what to think, it's always based on imitation. It's always based on an identity. It's always based on solidifying or sustaining your behavior. When we go into this space of how to think and really learning how to think, that logic, how to really use our logic and reason to our benefit, not to us reacting to a behavior, because that's a lot of times when we go with unhealed aspects and unhealed narratives within ourselves, we seem to bring logic and reason, which is always online, logic and reason to only fit what we can imagine. You try to use your logic and reason to only fit what you can imagine. Anything outside of what you can put together in your broken psyche, you will not accept. You're like, nah, I can't. No. What you mean? You can have use an example. Good example. Before me coming to the point I'm at now, I had a problem with being really direct. And I had to use anger to be direct. I had to be angry. I had to be in a lower level frequency to be direct. I had to be in that space to be direct. So if I wanted to have a conversation, I wanted to be serious, I felt that I had to be upset or mad to speak what I needed to speak. In order for me to be mad or go to that mad point, and this is something that's trained on us when we were fighters, to be mad at a certain point, I had to think about a memory that made me upset. So now, unconsciously, I'm programming the space to serve that thought form of that memory. What memory haunts me that makes me mad? Let me go think about that. Let me go think about my mom not doing this, or my mom telling me no. So I use that and I just keep going forward with that thought process. Here's the problem with using solely your anger based on reaction. Every time you use it, it goes back to that one thought. You create that thought, it creates another effect. Now you have another effect, You have another thing inside of your space in your life that makes you upset. So now the issues with your mother have now become the issues of every chick that you ever dealt with, friend, relationship, whatever it may be. So now you just keep going forward using that same train of thought, that same emotional impulse over, and over again into a space to keep doing what you're doing so you can keep reacting. Think about if then you have a homegirl, you got some friends, you got random other motherfuckers that are all in that space as a reflection. Everybody does that. Everybody does that all from their own point of memory, their own subconscious. Everybody makes that. Now everybody projects and makes that the enemy. So to maintain it now, to make that now their new enemy or the conduit of an enemy. Now everybody has layered on based on all the external data that is now gathered to that thought, in that stream of thought. Now everything has been created into that space. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. That's how we made Earth. That's how you made this. That's how we made this. That's how this is sustained. Until we change and actually go do the internal work inside of yourself, none of this is going to do anything. It's going to keep doing the same shit because you're not meant to be at this level. That's why I said in the opening, as you're shifting, it's cool. Yeah, it's the new shift. There's got to be love and abundance and peace and all of this. It's the same thing like motherfucker said last year. During the shift, it's about to be love and niggas about to get superpowers. Define it. Yeah, you got some powers. Yeah, you got some energy. Yeah, you got to tap into some shit. But define it. This generalized feeling of everybody's now on this new frequency. Everybody's on this new wave. If everybody's in the new frequency on this new wave, why are we still talking about the same shit? That's what you're supposed. When you go into a space, now it's time when you're questioning everything. When I say question everything. Why are we still talking about the same shit that we talking about in 2020? Why are we still talking about the same shit, whether it's 2020, 2015, 1999, 1998, 1990, 1970s, 1960s, the 1950s? It always seems to be the same train of thought. It's because it's based on what and not how. How takes responsibility. Why takes responsibility. In order for me to ask a question of how, I must take responsibility to accept that answer. Most of us ask questions based on what? What then? What now? So when are we going to do it? So when are we going to advance? When are the white people about to be knocked off? When is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? None of us want to take the responsibility of asking the how, because that is what triggers the true logic and reason in the true imagination, the true aspects of the subconscious. When I start asking how all the time, my mind has to cycle through all of these, everything that's back there that was my original how. When you start doing that work, you start asking yourself how over and over and over again. How does this work? How does this happen? Why did this happen? Where is it coming from? Why am I feeding this? Why do I continue to do this behavior? Why do I keep going through and these are the things that I outline in sessions. Why do I keep doing this? How is this a part of me? What is this? How does this have anything to do with me? And once you start really asking those questions and really sitting there with yourself and really looking past not the identity, not because you're a black person, not because you're a god, not because you're a goddess, because you got to get all the way back into you. The inner child is going to have all those answers. The inner child stands in front of all of those doors. The inner child stands in front of all of these doors. The inner child is your key. The inner child, in killing off what is siphoning from your inner child, That's the point of understanding that your inner child is your inner child is your ego in unrest. Everything that you got told when you were little, think about it like this. Everything you got told that you were little, right, wrong, indoctrination, that's everything that your inner child took in. Your inner child took all of that in as you were a child, and now it took all of that shit in. Now when you're grabbing all of this new information and bringing it to the table, similar to when you were sitting at the table and your mom was teaching your ABCs, or your dad was teaching you your numbers, or your dad was teaching you how to cut the grass, or whatever the hell type of shit that happened to you when you were little, whatever your parents thought, and you sat there and fought and you kicked and you screamed and you was mad and you was upset at the world because motherfuckers was trying to make you do some shit you didn't want to do. This is the same exact, that's the same process. But now you are now becoming the parent. You are the parent. You are the parent now. So now this makes you start thinking about everything was based on a design. Everything was based on a design. So your mother not being there mentally and emotionally and or physically or spiritually, your pops not being there mentally or emotionally or physically and all those aspects, those are going to be the emotional triggers. Those are going to be the emotional triggers that are going to allow you to master the information and the knowledge that you're taking in. That's what it's present for. That's its purpose. Through that pain, or that pain is that spark. That's the contradiction. That's the point. That's that contradiction so you can acknowledge your behavior. You can fight it all you want. You can be like, nah, I don't want to do this because it's going to lead me to something bad. Okay. Keep avoiding it. Keep avoiding it. Keep thinking the way that you are based in comfort. And the craziest thing about when it comes to comfort is a lot of people get that loving the light and the dark. We get them twisted up. So the things that we brought to the light that we've accepted based on comfort, we want to keep the same. So if you out here doing some diabolical, dirty ass shit, you doing shit that's against your soul purpose of coming into love with yourself, and then you've accepted that, you're still feeding the same aspects that you haven't dealt with. This is why I tell people, like, you can be all love and light all you want and avoid the darkness, avoid the dark aspects of yourself all day. Cool. Boom. Are you going to walk around? All you're going to be able to do is sustain the projection. It's like if someone comes to me for chakra work, for example, I've seen it firsthand. People do chakra work to people. And they're like, we're going to clear your chakras and open up your chakras. And it sounds nice. It sounds very lovely. The music's nice. The scene's nice. They set this beautiful scene. And they say, okay, cool. And let's lay here. Let's deal with your chakras. And they're like, okay. Oh, I feel your root chakra is blocked. I feel these chakras are blocked. Okay. They're not clearing your chakras. They're not clearing your chakras. They're simply opening them. Because everything is until you understand what your root chakra, being the root, what your energy is rooted in, basically on the scars of that, your chakra will remain out of balance. Until you understand what your root chakra is, being that it's rooted, that's the root, that's your tree, that's the base of you. So your energy, everything into that level, what are you rooted in? What are the scars that are on your root? What are the scars or the aspects that has your root chakra overbalanced or underbalanced? You have confidence issues, or you overly, you're underconfident, you're shy, you don't like speaking up in all of these aspects, or sometimes now you're arrogant, you're loud, you're rude. So your chakra's over. balance is over or it's under until you bring it into the center, and then you understand, why do I lean this way or lean that way? You're not doing the work. All of this is aspects of you going internally to remove and deal with these things. It's not on this level of like, some things is easy. I'm not gonna lie, some things are easy. It comes up, it's a current event, you dealt with it, cool, knock it off. Other things, such as the womb that you were in, when you came and you were birthed, when you came down the chute, when you came down here, the womb that you came through, was it a womb based in survival? Was it based in pain? What were your mother's thoughts? What was your mother's thoughts? What were your father's thoughts leading up to you coming into this space? That's some shit you're gonna have to deal with. Not just the shit, not just the known. That's the known shit that you got to deal with. There's also the unknown, or the deeper unseen. That's the unseen and the unheard and the unseen world. That's the unseen aspects that you got to tap into and really deal with. It's not just what you simply know. Just like simply when Bubba like ancestors known and unknown, that's energies, and that's the energies that are known. That means you understood them, the principles and the energies of you that you know, and then the shit that you don't know. There's shit that some of your ancestors did, sometimes that misused the energy. That's the unseen or your unknown ancestors. Them niggas is on lockdown somewhere inside of you. And when you came through into this space, that energy was already predetermined, or that's the blockage that's in your human design. So when we go into this human design chart, those undefined areas in those same spaces, in that underline, the undisclosed traumas that you haven't dealt with, and every other energy based in that point that hasn't been dealt with up to that point. It's an undefined aspect. That's what creates your space. The longer you don't deal with it, the more your space sustains. The more oppressed you gonna feel. The more struggle you gonna go through. The more pain you gonna go through. The more I keep going through the same shit every fucking day of the week, and I don't know why. Because you ain't taking responsibility. Because you're not taking responsibility for yourself. You're so focused on, we can get so focused on the physical, the material, but I got to do this and I got to do this. But what is the reason that you have to do that? Not the identity reason, not because you're a mother, not because you're a brother, not because you're a sister, not because you're a husband, wife, boyfriend, not the identity, not because you're a Moor, a Mason, not because you're a Kemite, not because you're team dark side, not because you love and light, not the identity. What is the reason that you yourself has to do that? What is that? What is that reason? How does that reason out? How does that reason? Because that's what you're pulling from. That's where you're pulling from. And it can be what you, man, it was based on survival. Why did you feel you needed to survive? Man, because when I was 6 years old, my mom made me the man of the house when I was 6 because my dad wasn't there. Congratulations, we found your wound. We found one of your wounds. You've been in you've been in this identity. You've been trying to maintain an identity since you were 6. How is any behavior maintained? Through the emotional channel from that space. So the emotions that you had when you were 6, the emotional downtrodden that happened to you when you were 6, and now that you're saying you're a man, you're an adult now, or you're a grown-ass woman, you're still acting from the point from where you were 6. You're still acting from the point that when you were 12. I don't know how many stories I've ever just read where it's like that one timeline where it's like every year the woman, like the daughters, I remember for example, my mother's side of the karmic debt family. Every one of my mother's sisters have either had kids before they were 16, they had multiple baby fathers, and everything to that narrative. That was their narrative. They all had kids before 16. Nobody had any type of plans. Nobody built anything. And whenever anything was built on, it was based on this narrative of it was based on that old narrative of go find a man to take care of you type shit. That's what it was based on. So when I came through and my mom, this is for my mother, in changing it in her way, when she met my pops, because she met my father, they did their thing. I was conceived. Nobody knew. She came back down here. She met my pops. My pops was in a more safe zone, if you want to say. He was more safe. He had a normal 9 to 5. My pops was in the street. My pops was that poppy. So in that space. So my mom solidified to that space. Unconsciously didn't know, because my mother didn't want to continue the same train of thought. Here's the thing about my mother not understanding. She did it based on a survival complex. So now everything that she had to do was based on survival. So because how did I come about? How did my mom and pops got married? It's because I was born. That was the relationship. Or I guess I got to make you, because that same narrative, like, well, if it's my child, then it's our child. We got to get married and come together. That's how that stream was created. So in order for that to maintain itself, or that stream, that generational onslaught to keep going, that's what had to keep going. So since my mom did it based in survival, my sisters followed suit. My brother actually followed suit. No, my sister followed suit first. My younger sisters followed suit. My brother followed suit, all the way up to that point based in survival. I didn't do it based on survival. I changed that narrative. I was like unconsciously not realizing what I did it, but I changed that narrative. From that point, I opened up another gate. Before I knew it, and this is how this shit pops up, and this is how we connect to these things. Before I realized it, most of the things that I did were always based in initiating everything, starting things, initiating things, bringing things into existence, manifesting, just bringing things out of nowhere, creating on that aspect. And then I was like, I got the information about my human design later on. And I was like, wait, manifest the generator is my human design. So now when I go look back at my life, look back at this life cycle, and look back at my past lives and do my internal work, I'm like, wait, I've always been doing what I'm supposed to have been doing. I was just doing it from certain emotional blockages. I was doing it based on reaction. I was always invoking thought. I was always initiating shit. I was always ahead of some shit. I was always thinking ahead. I was always in that space. What would stop me from actually embracing this factor of myself was the fear of my fear of rejection, that fear, that doubt, that fear of rejection, not being loved, not being shown the appropriate, not being shown what I thought was not being shown the appropriate aspects of what love was in the space that I was in, because I had from 1 to 12, 1 to 10, I had like the traditional, I had 2 parents in the house. But when I turned 12 and when I found out, oh damn, this is who my pops is not my pops. I now know who my father is. Now I need to go know my father. Father was the plug. He had the streets on lock. He was one of them. He was one of those families that was up in New York. Like, he was one of the families. So, but in the darkness, my first dip into the darkness, my first true dip into the darkness, I learned what family was. I learned what real fucking balanced love was. I learned the masculine and the feminine principle. It had nothing to do with man or woman, the male or the female, the law of gender. I really started understanding what the masculine and the feminine energy was in that space, not understanding at that point, but that was my first coming into it in my experience. My first experiences of it, of seeing actual balance of the masculine and the feminine energy. It was a contradiction in itself that I'm like, not really understanding this, but I was in a space to where I could see it. That's what you're going to start, when you start getting deep into this internal work, you're going to see your ahas and the contradictions and the points that contradict in your life. Those are the points that you're going to be learning from. You can't learn something from something that doesn't make you uncomfortable. I can't learn from something that doesn't make me uncomfortable, doesn't make me take me outside of myself, or else I'm going to be stuck within the aspects of the program, of that program that was already preset. That wokeness, okay, cool, you're woke. You're conscious. What are you aware of? I'm aware of the injustices. Bruh. Internal conflict creates external conflict. Internal conflict creates external conflict. You mad at the government. You mad at the government because they're keeping shit from you and they're not being fully upfront with you. Are you really mad at the government? Or are you mad at your family because they kept Uncle Leroy's problem a secret? That's where it's pulling from. If I keep you in that space, if I keep you from dealing with yourself, if I keep you always from dealing with yourself, from learning your emotions, from taking ownership of yourself, then you'll never take the time to own yourself. Going into this space of, when I've talked about it before, emotional literacy is the key to your emotional literacy is the key to your financial literacy and everything else that comes with it. If you really go look at a Black Law dictionary, or you really go look at how a family trust is set up, how a family trust is set up, LLCs are set up, business companies are set up, business models are set up, you'll really understand the real dynamics of a family. None of that shit ain't got nothing, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the basis of love. Because love should already be a present. Love is vulnerability and openness. So if I'm unified within myself, the reason I cannot go into a space and fully create something of full ownership is because when I'm going into the space, I'm creating it from a broken aspect. I'm pulling it from a broken aspect. The longer that I'm not dealing with what's going on in internal, there's always something to be fed from. There's always something to be used. Why is there always something to be used? Because I'm still something, every level that I go to, where I'm supposed to become, where I'm supposed to say, I'm empty, I'm open, I'm releasing. I speak the affirmation that I'm releasing from all the identities that I used to survive. The next level to that affirmation of that narrative is everything that's in your space that's based on you survival, based on you surviving, is gonna light the fuck up. Gas, lit the fuck up. Gas shit, lit the fuck up. Trump in office, everything lit the fuck up. It only showed you the shit that you were not doing. It showed you your comfort level, your comfort zone. It challenged your comfort zone every single time. It challenged your identities. It did everything it was supposed to do. Everything's right on schedule. Everything's right on time. Everything's right on time. What are you doing while you inside of the space? What are you really doing? Or are you just on the trend? You're just going to keep following the trend blindly based on that old identity. You don't take any time to invest for you don't take any time to really invest into yourself. So why do you wonder why your energy is always drained? Because you're not investing into yourself. You're thinking about maintaining everything externally so you can say at the end of the day, yeah, I got it out the mud. Nigga, how long you going to be inside the mud? How long you going to stay inside this narrative before you really do some things for yourself? How long, man, it's too late, man. You know, if I start doing that now and then people going to look, I don't give a fuck about how people look at me or how people want to act against me now. Because I'm taking responsibility for me. This is what responsibility looks like. And you mean if I don't take responsibility, then I get to go stay looking like that, or I get to keep doing the same shit every fucking week? I get to keep posting the same fucking 3 posts every week on fucking Facebook. I get to keep posting the same fucking injustices. Oh my God, they killed this person. Let me put it on my Facebook page. Everybody comes to your Facebook page. They look at your Facebook page. How do you feel about the vaccine? I don't feel shit about the fucking vaccine. How you feel about, I don't feel shit about that. But they got those kids over there locked up in the in the little camps and whatever. What can I really do? We can protest. What is protesting going to do? What is the march going to do? What is the petition going to do? What if a protest worked? Here's the question. What if the protest worked? What if the protest worked? And right now they sat there and said, okay, cool. All these motherfuckers standing on the White House lawn, standing up here, they standing up against us. All right, cool. Let's give them back their shit. Let's give them back America. Let's give them back Africa. Let's give them back wherever the fuck they want to go. Let's give it back to them. Cool, let's give it back to them. The fuck you gonna do with it? Who's gonna do what? Who's gonna take ownership of what? Who's gonna do what? Who's gonna take this? Who's gonna take control of this? Who's gonna make the sanction for this? Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna run the schools? Who's gonna run the electric company? Who's gonna run the water company? Who's gonna run the hospital? Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? Who's gonna do this? Every motherfucker cannot sell beads. Every motherfucker cannot sell oil. Because eventually it would go right back to the same exact shit. Why? Because it's based on the behavior. If my behavior is based in struggle, based in the traumatic events that I have not dealt with, I don't care what I do. Whenever the highest point, when it gets really emotional and it gets really, really hectic and it gets really, really crazy, I'm always going to go back to what makes me comfortable. I'm always going to go back to what makes me comfortable. You're always going to go back to that one point. The cliche aspect of the heart wants what it wants. That's why I keep getting these relationships and these niggas, they ain't shit. Or I keep getting in these relationships and these bitches keep treating me the same because I love them and I give them my heart and I give them everything that they could possibly need. Why wouldn't they love me? Or why wouldn't they do this to that aspect? Here goes the truth to the fact of the matter. You're only serving an external aspect. Instead of you saying why, followed by a reaction of niggas don't know me, they don't understand this, and this. It's the government. Motherfuckers don't understand. They use us. They're users. You allow yourself to be used every fucking day. The only reason you getting used is because the reason you get used so much is because you do not have any sense of ownership. You have took no ownership to yourself. You have no responsibility within yourself. That's why it's so easy for you to be overused. Your energy continues to get drained over and over and over again because you still got those doors that you have not dealt with. And you keep building up these fictitious narratives for yourself to keep doing what you're doing. And then when it comes time for you to sit with yourself, now you got this whole space full of all of these multiple energies. Some of these thoughts aren't even really yours. So now you sitting there mad at everybody that got this. You mad because now you can't think straight. It can't be my fault. I'm innocent. And now you just projecting innocence. You proclaiming your innocence. You denying any responsibility to anything that you're doing. Keep denying your responsibility. Something outside of you has to govern it. Everything has to find a balance. If I don't take responsibility for myself, then something outside of me has to take responsibility for me. Until I started taking responsibility for myself, I always needed something outside of me to take responsibility of me. I know myself to a T. I know that my energy will overrun anybody. I can overrun anything. That's my natural energy. That's my natural setting. So before I realized and really accepted that and started working on the aspects of balancing myself out, I depended upon doing dumbass shit just so motherfuckers could check me. Doing shit based on reaction just so motherfuckers could get upset with me. I sat back one day. I remember I sat back. It was during my first ego death, one of my first ego deaths. And I really sat back and I looked at how many times I literally did some shit just to get a reaction. I literally looked back and sat and was like, I do a lot of shit just to get a reaction. I do a lot of shit just to make motherfuckers upset with me so they leave me alone. I do this shit a lot. I put myself in positions to where motherfuckers have to get upset with me, have to be upset, depressed. I do this shit a fucking lot. And when I started realizing and really taking responsibility for that aspect, it changed my behavior. Where did I learn that shit from? Who was the first person that used to do that shit? Who was the first person that was doing that on a normal basis? Who was the first person that did that shit what was my first example of these aspects happening in my life? So I could just continuously keep doing what I was doing. So I can continuously just keep saying that, yeah, it's because of, yeah, people can't understand. People don't understand who I am. So I got to be this way or I got to do this. I was lying to my fucking self every fucking time. That's basically what the fuck I was doing, lying to myself. And then finding something outside of finding something to blame it on. I was aware, but I wasn't taking responsibility. Ownership. Creating these situations so you can become the victor, not the victim. We got to come out of this space with ourselves of creating this space of everything that you got right now going on for you. We build these antagonists. You want to keep an antagonist in your life. At some point in time throughout your life, it's the same antagonist. Same antagonist. The same basic thought is the same antagonist that keeps running your life ragged. So you can stay where you are at within this space of you being comfortable with yourself. I'm going to read this page out of here real quick when it talks about imitation. Gnostic education. The fundamentals of Gnostic education. Learn how to think and not what to think. I'm actually going to read the front page of this book. What is the value of accumulating much knowledge within our minds if we continue to be confused? What is the value of technical and industrial skills if we use them for destruction of our own fellow men? It is worthless to receive instruction, to attend classes, to study, if in the process of our daily living, we are miserably destroying one another. Indeed, the true objective of fundamental education must be to create true men and women who, because of the psychological integration, are cognizant and intelligent. It was this crazy part about, here it is. It was talking about, what chapter is this? It's actually in the first chapter. And it details the aspects of imitation. We imitate clothes of our neighbor out of imitation, the different threads of fashion come into view. Yes, we imitate the customs of our neighbor, even when these are mistaken. We imitate their vices. We imitate all which is absurd, all of which is forever repeating through time, etc. It is necessary for teachers in the school to teach their students how to think for themselves in an independent manner. Teachers must not grant the possibilities to their students. A mind that lives enslaved to what people might say is a mind that imitates because of fear of violating traditions, rules, or customs. Is not a mind of creativity. Is not a mind of creativity. Just wanted to read that little piece out of there. Basically, it's this imitation process. I remember going through this imitation process. And the imitation process was to maintain that identity, to keep me doing a certain thing. So then when it didn't work, because it was always a possibility that it wouldn't work or it would work. If it didn't work, I had to understand why it wasn't working, because I was trying to build something in a space that it was not meant for. I had this conversation earlier. You can put yourself in a position of stress and unrest, or you can put yourself in that same position of stress and unrest. Can be a very deep, is the same space for reflection. The same space in where you're stressing at, the same place where you have anxieties at, the same place where you're feeling grief, guilt, doubt, and all of these lower aspects, is the same space where deep reflection into looking inside of yourself. It's not based on bias or negative self-talk. It's based in, let me really sit here with this thought or with myself and really realize, what am I really doing with my life? Most people do the same 3 things every single day. Wake up, gamble with your life, and then go to sleep. Wake up, gamble with your life, find a new way to gamble with your life, and then go to sleep. That gamble with your life can be going to work every day. That gamble with your life can be whatever. The gamble is whatever is an addictive, is based in that addictive ass behavior that you have not discussed. Remember, an addictive behavior is based in attachment. That means you need something externally to give you your charge. When you're in this true state of connection with yourself, you don't have that addictive behavior it's no longer an addictive behavior. I had a very addictive behavior. It wasn't based in drugs. It was based in wanting to be accepted. So my addiction was to be accepted. So that fundamental train of thought for myself was to do everything based on acceptance. So if anything took me outside of my comfort zone of being accepted, then it didn't stick, or it didn't implant. It didn't seed. It didn't grow. And then when it did grow, that shit looked weird as fuck. The shit didn't look like what it was supposed. It didn't fit. It didn't fit the narrative. It didn't fit. This is what happens when you're transitioning through your growth. Everything that you taking shit with you to every one of these points, the same damn thing, that one little emotional wound, it can be something as simple as hell that you keep carrying with you. I'm going to deal with it later. I'm not going to deal with it. I don't have to deal with it. It'll naturally fall off by itself. It ain't going to fall off until you deal with it. That's what the programs now, that's what you got programs on TV now for. You got a whole section on Netflix for black people, black critically acclaimed actors and black critically acclaimed indie films, all talking about the same shit. Some nigga had to die. The Side Chick Chronicles. Same bullshit every fucking time. The same narrative. To keep you like, oh, see, shit's changing. Shit's happening. See, now things are happening. No, it's not. No, nothing's happening. The shit that's happening to make you feel good is keep you comfortable so you don't make any moves. So you don't do what the fuck so you don't do what you need to do. What is your purpose? People can complain every single day about kids aren't learning this, and kids aren't learning this, and kids aren't doing this, and kids aren't learning this. Why haven't you learned it yet? Teach me something I might not know. I don't have time. I got to go to work. I got to do this and I got to do that. Okay. You don't work 24 hours out the day. Everything's based on your behavior. Everything that you take in is going to be based in your behavior. If you do not address your behavior, you're always going to end up, all you're doing is moving shit around. You have to stop wanting to move shit around all the fucking time. I'm going to move this over here. And I'm just going to put that. No. Stop moving shit around. Because all you're doing is shutting yourself down. You're going to get your own design. You're going to get your natural human design. Your design, what you're designed to do. You want this greatness to happen to you, but you're not tapping in that's in you. That you have to deal with those things. I remember for a lot of times for myself, one of the hardest things that I had to really deal with was the what if that I kept telling myself. If I do this and nobody agrees with me, but I know that it's me. I know that it's something that I must do. I know it's something that I must do. It's not based on an identity. It's not based on maintaining anything. It's going to destroy a lot of things. It's going to destroy a lot of friendships. People are going to be mad at me. People are going to get upset. I have to let them feel what the fuck they're going to feel. I got to let them think what they're going to fucking think. Because they're really not thinking. They're just mimicking. Oh, that nigga said this about... I really had to get comfortable with that aspect. That's one of the biggest things that I tell my client. Like, you really have to get comfortable that motherfuckers are not going to like you anymore. They never really liked you. They just were able to feed. They were able to circumvent from you because you were at that level. You didn't understand a part about yourself. So now that you starting to understand these things about yourself, and now your environment's changing, now that's going to be your building process. But you have to go. You got to go into this shit first. You can't come in here and be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna come back out and I'm gonna put..." No. All that shit. All this shit's gonna die anyway. All this shit's about to fall away anyway. You're in the position to receive a bunch of shit. You're in the position to receive you're in the right position. What are you doing with it? A lot of times we don't realize that we're in the position that we're in is the position that we need to be in. The reason that we don't understand that we're in the position that we're in and the position that we need to be in is where we are at is because we're stuck within that time. I remember when I had to define time. I really had to define time. I had to step out of that old mindset. I had to go into those doors that I created, that I was projecting from. Your Akashic records, going into your Akashic records, going into this Rolodex of your mindsets, of everything that you ever had, every identity. It's not when you state these statements of I'm releasing away from all the identities that I survived, that I built based on survival. The next step is to look at the identities that you created based on survival. I just can't say I'm releasing all of this and now I'm good. I actually have to do the fucking work. That's one of the processes that leave motherfuckers leaving from their spiritual path or straying from their spiritual path, straying from their purpose and not doing what they need to do or getting stuck within a faction. And that's only reflective of getting stuck in that shadow, getting stuck in this realm back here where somebody else got stuck too. That's why it was so easy for you to do it. Like I just told that story about my mother's side of the family. Talking about my father's side of the family. Father's side of the family, most of my cousins are transitioned. Most of the motherfuckers are locked up for life. And then there's just me. Everybody left was too scared to make any type of move. They living out their lives. A couple of my cousins went and got the fucking vaccine. That ain't got shit to do with me. There were simply projections of aspects of myself for me to experience some shit. That's what everything down here basically is. You can get stuck in the pageantry. You can get stuck in the fundamental thought of imitation, or you actually can do some shit for yourself. You actually can learn yourself. Every time that you try to learn yourself or you come into this space of learning yourself, the only thing that's coming up is that door that you have to go through. There were so many doors that I had to go through in my life just in learning myself just to get to a point of balance, to get to a point of where I was like, I'm okay. I'm all right. Because until I got to that point, I just kept doing the same shit over and over again. I get to a point like, ooh, I worked out, and then I stopped. Why did I stop? The behavior, I started feeling good, so I stopped. I didn't get the necessary result that I was looking for. I'm no longer looking for that physical result. I'm no longer stuck in trying to be something that's not really me. If I don't feel it, I don't feel it, I don't do it. You're gonna have to become comfortable. You have to become solidified with that factoid for yourself. You keep trying to make the same moves, but you're not understanding the emotional behavior that puts you into that position. If you started something based in fear to survive, in the moment that it started thriving, guess what has to happen to keep it balanced? It has to go back to a dip. What are you learning in that? I've talked about this dip before. This dip is actually... Is it in this one? One second, let me get the book. Whew, here it is. The dip is actually in this book, The Serpent Grill. An example of the axis is in this book, actually. Do 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 do. Here it is. Because I'm actually still reading this book. The transseminal plane, right here. Ta-da. This center line, this is where everything meets. The dip is the dips interchange between the masculine and the feminine energy. So if you create a space, let's say you create a space or you're creating some shit and you are not addressing, it all goes back to these wounds, and you're not addressing your emotional wounds, you're not addressing your attachments, you're not addressing the shit that you need to attach. In order for it to continue, these things must come back to the surface in order to be assessed. Not avoided, but assessed. If you're not assessing these things, then the environment in which you created in sustains, and it naturally goes through its process of clearing it out. Either you're going to do it or it's going to be done for you. That's why concentrating on the physical aspects, the external, the physical, the material plane, it's not going to do anything. That's why marching doesn't do shit. That's why marching, petitions, and standing for your rights and advocating and all of that shit, it doesn't work. It gives a feel-good narrative. It makes it feel good. It makes everything look really, really fine and dandy. But until the internal aspect is taken care of, that shit's gonna just repeat itself over and over and over again. This is when we talked about most people, when I talk about these emotional channels, most people that are in their 50s and 60s, you gotta think about it like this. The motherfuckers that are in their 50s and 60s, the ones that did the Afrocentric movement, the ones that did the Afrocentric movement and the pro-black movement and the Black Panther movement and all of these fucking movements, they're stuck in emotional channels of whatever happened for them to join that movement, start that group. They're stuck within those emotional channels. So if they got into the Black Panthers or the Afrocentric shit when they were in their fucking, when they were like 16 and 17, that means they experienced some shit that happened when they were 12 and 13 that stunted their emotional development, that they're now reacting through that set point based on an identity. And everything that comes in under that went through the same or an equivalent emotional cycle for that environment to exist. That project, that hood, that ghetto, for it to exist. I was watching the 85 South show and they had David Banner on there. And he got really emotional. He was like, there was an unwritten rule between black people. Like wherever you went, if you got something, you're supposed to come back and get us or bring it down here and teach us. And I agree with the sentiment of the comment, but then I thought about it based in behavior. If I do something based in fear, then I'm going to have to maintain a level of fear for me to continue doing it. So then I thought about when you see motherfuckers like, oh, them niggas is bougie and the boule and all of these aspects of that nature. When I think about fraternities and niggas joining governments and niggas joining all these identities and joining all these things to maintain an identity, all of these groups are based on fear. All of these groups are based on fear. All of these groups are based on maintaining a trauma. So in order for me to stay in the identity of my trauma and then to have some shit, I got to stay within the trauma bond. I got to stay within the fear complex. The moment that I come out of the fear complex, I don't know who the fuck I am. When I came out of my fear complexes and those old behaviors, my identities, and I shed these old identities, I didn't know who the fuck I was. The natural reaction of my inner child was to go find some clothes. Think of the Adam and Eve story. When you realize, you're like, nigga, I'm naked. Oh shit, I gotta go find some shit to go. I gotta go find an identity to put on because I'm not used to being this exposed. I'm not used to being vulnerable. I'm not used to being open like this. Oh shit, I'm vulnerable. I gotta find some shit. This same shit happened when you think about relationships and since you're used to manipulating or possessing some things, a possessive intent or ownership or owning something based on an identity. When it comes time when that identity is challenged, why you did the things that you did, and now you don't have to do them anymore, guess what truly comes out? Your true self comes out. The contradiction challenges your behavior. Oh shit, I got a man that washes clothes and cleans the house and does this and does shit like this. Oh shit, I don't know what to do. First thing I've seen it happen. I've had it happen to me plenty of times in relationships. Soon as I do that, you're too attentive. You're too this, you're too that. But then in that same space for myself, it was a learning process because indeed I was very much it wasn't that I was too attentive. It was the energy that was feeding my attentiveness. Even though they couldn't explain it, none of us can explain it inside of the space. It was based on my attentiveness or my doing everything and not really saying anything was based on a fear of rejection. Because what did I take into the space? A fear of rejection. What did they bring into the space? A fear of being a neglect. They brought in neglect wounds. So we came into this space with these masks on. They had a mask of neglect. I had a mask of rejection. I had a mask of abandonment. So as long as we're in this space acting out through these masks, everything was fine and dandy. Everything was great. But when it came to a point to where those masks started to come off, the true vulnerability, the true realness of ourselves started showing out through the natural cycle. Remember, everything got to find that balance. So when the dip came through to where I cannot be attentive because I had to work some more or some shit, or a true aptitude to them came through based on neglect because, okay, cool, now I got to go to work, or now they got to do this. They're not used to that aspect. They can't manipulate it. It's a different space. That's when it would fall apart. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening now on the scale of the shift. All this energy that came through, motherfuckers are waking up, motherfuckers are realizing themselves, they're becoming more independent. We're in that stream of thought, but now it's time to address the emotional catalyst. That's what it means by that veil is gone. Now it's time to address your emotional catalyst. Now there's no hiding yourself. That just ripples out. Now it's really time to really have that fucking conversation with the family members that are living instead of avoiding it, and really have that conversation. Like one of the conversations that I had with my mother recently, and I love that I can say this clearly. One of the conversations that I had with my mother recently was about my uncle. My uncle is a registered pedophile. My uncle's a registered pedophile. And I asked my mother, how does she feel? Like, how does she feel about my uncle, her brother? Till this day, she denies it. She doesn't accept it. She's seen it. She's seen things firsthand and they don't speak on it. And I'm like, okay. But instead of me getting upset and emotional, because I've asked my mother this question before, instead of me getting emotional this time, like, I can't believe I would do this and da-da-da-da. Instead of me getting emotional, I accepted her answer. Her answer is based in denial. It's something that she ain't willing to deal with. That trauma, that type of shit she ain't ready to deal with. But for me, it's time for me to deal with that aspect, to bring that to the surface. A lot of these different issues that we're not dealing with, it's time to bring these shits to the surface. We don't like talking about sexual abuse. We don't like talking about sexual abuse. We don't like talking about these things. These things have to be brought to the surface. We got to have a space to bring that shit to the surface. We have to build that space. It's your responsibility. It's not your responsibility for what the fuck happened. It's not your responsibility for what the fuck happened. You got to stop being like, well, that happened and da-da-da because of this, and this, because you'll always find an excuse. But it is your responsibility, if it's in your purpose, if it's really with you and your balance, for you to actually have that conversation, to really start building that space, to really start dealing with these things, because that's the little shit that's going to get your ass coming back here. When I really took that shit, and I remember I watched the Panic lecture and listened to that shit really hit. I was like, damn, it's the little shit that is going to have your ass coming back here. The little shit. You thinking about, is this? It's the little things, those little insignificant things that you think are insignificant, that you can hide away forever. Those are the things that keep getting you stuck. Those are the things that keep coming up in those relationships. Those are the things that keep coming up in those friendships. Those are the things that keep coming up as those examples over and over again. Those are the things that keep happening. Those are the things that keep popping up. Those are the things that can be fed upon because they have a lower vibration. Remember, it's on a lower vibrational scale. Remember, everything is pieces, then it comes together. Remember Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory type shit? That's the shit that we have to deal with. Those are the conversations that you need. Those are the conversations that need to start being had in an environment and in a space to where it's not based on blame. Because that's what creates the environment. That was my uncle. Then my father's brother, he was a fucking pimp. I remember I had a conversation. I actually had a whole channel with my uncle and his pimp days and why he was a pimp and how he came to be in that industry before he became an escort, he owned an escort service and all of this type of shit. And I remember I had the whole channel with him. He was like, unresolved trauma. His father, my grandfather took my father and his brothers and was introducing them to pussy early. They were in the drug business. We were in the drug game. That was them. So they got introduced to pussy when they were early. Unresolved trauma. I'll put it like this. My father lost his virginity the same age that I lost my virginity. I actually got my Red Wings that same fucking time. I got my Red Wings and lost my virginity when I was 13 years old. To my babysitter. She was 16 and a half. She was like 16, 17. Something happened between her and her boyfriend. Her boyfriend broke up or some shit. And we were sitting there playing Sega Genesis at my aunt house, my Thea house, and some shit went on, and then she kissed me and I kissed her, and I said some slick shit to her. She said some slick shit back. She didn't expect me to say some slick shit back to her, and shit happened. I absorbed the behavior. I didn't know why it happened or when I didn't know what the fuck I was doing at that point. I didn't know what happened at that fucking point, but it happened to me. And then really realized, I'm like, oh shit. So then when I had that channel with my uncle told me what happened to him in that same age range. I was like, how far does this go back? So when I addressed this wound, because that became a behavioral marker for me. Because before that behavioral marker came up, right after that at 13, no, that was 13. It was 14. I was 13 going 14. I had an argument with my mother, and she was talking about bills being paid. And I came at her like, you don't pay the bills, Pops pay all the bills. And we had that whole argument. I was cementing a behavior. All because of what all of this shit connected. All of this shit built my identity. So when I came into being 18 and 19, I was still carrying that same fucking identity. And that identity was fed from the emotional behavior that was based in the timeline. So I kept doing the same shit. Craziest part about that, now look at the other end. I just told you about my uncle from my uncle of my mother's side in that karmic debt. My uncle, grown ass man, he playing with 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. Because my cousin bringing his girlfriends over, she brought her friends over. Uncle go buy them alcohol and all this shit. The same exact fucking complex of a narrative. Same complex of a narrative, never spoken of, never talked about, never dealt with, leaves an emotional scar that I didn't think was an emotional scar. I didn't think nothing of it. I just thought, okay, cool. And then the external environment that built that narrative on top of that, it wasn't the environment that created that narrative. It was the energy that I was in that created that narrative. Everything outside of me was programmed based on that narrative. So now I'm listening to motherfucking rappers sing all this shit, what is going on. The reason that I'm vibing to it and connecting to it and living through it in that same process is because it's in me. It's already there. It's already present. It's already inputted. That's why it connects so easily. I was like, shit, I never knew that shit. I never thought about these things. But I was protected. I was more protected than I was actually more protected than I actually fucking thought by the higher levels of energy, because I never went through a process to where I got anchored to anything. Like, my whole purpose being down here is to shed that light to those things. So I never got anchored to certain aspects. Certain things never happened to me. I never had to go through certain things. I always had this sense to be able to get out of some shit where I didn't realize, like, where other motherfuckers got knocked off and the shit happened to them, the shit never happened to me. And I was either even deeper in than them, or I was either deeper in than them or right there beside them when it happened. And this is those layers that you got to understand. Like, I had whole separation anxiety complexes because I lost so many fucking family members at a young age. By the time I turned 16, 27 family members that I knew. There wasn't just motherfuckers that, oh, that's your cousin, that's your brother, that's your cousin, that's your other cousin, that's your cousin. These like motherfuckers that I actually knew, I actually hung out with, I actually was around for a period of time that I was attached to, that created those scars that were on those scars. And I wasn't dealing with these scars really. So usually undealing with that scar, that's why I asked that question. I posted that question on Facebook. Where did you learn to be possessive? Because I had a lot of possessive markers in my I had a lot of possessive wounds. I was very possessive. But I didn't think about it being possessive because it wasn't based on the definition or the identity of what possessive looks like. This is when we got to stop getting into those spaces of this is what possessive looks like, and that's what a narcissist is. This is what all these using the term to anchor to I'm not that, so that's not me. You've carried some narcissistic ass traits. You've carried some possessive ass traits. You've done some manipulative ass shit. Those are the things that you have to deal with. Those are the things that we got to get to that source, go to the source of where the fuck that shit started at. That's your work. That's how these so when you think about the entity of the Jezebel spirits, you think about the entities of Jezebel spirits and all of these spiritual entities and these hauntings, that's based on that energy coming back into this space based on something unresolved. I remember when Bobby Hemmett broke down the aspects of the gods, and the old gods are in position, and the reason that they fed so long, similar to like motherfuckers think about you think about the whole Jesus thing, and they fed so long that they got really, really fat off of that energy. Now they don't want to move. The reason that they're not moving is because all of that energy is defined by the traumatic events. All of that shit's defined by the traumatic events. So internal, external, as above, as below, as in, as without. the correspondence, that causation. So if I'm not dealing with my internal aspects, they stay where they're at. Those entities, those energies stay where they at. They stay in power. They stay in the position that they're in. It's only because I'm not dealing with it. When I started dealing with those aspects, tapping into those aspects, tearing back those layers, going into my hell zones, going into these spiritual realms, dealing with this shit that I needed to deal with, I started unlocking these things within myself. Everything literally changed. Nothing remained in the same space. Everything changed. I changed. Not only on a physical sense, but my mentality changed. As I became more emotionally aware, I became more emotionally available. Some of y'all is out there right now due to the loss of one person, two people, three, how many, due to the loss of some people in your life and the what love that they gave to you or how they showed you love in a true unadulterated sense, and you saying, I'm never going to love again, that's an incantation that you spoke over yourself. So now you upset because every nigga you meet, every bitch you meet, every nigga, because we don't say niggas and bitches, and you put them in that space, everybody that you meeting, they're emotionally unavailable or they're overly emotional, is because it's something that you lack within inside of yourself. You meet somebody based on you being emotionally unavailable, and now they're overly emotional. They're compensating for the space. You took no emotion into the space. So they got to bring, so naturally to make that space balance, somebody got to be overly emotional. Then some of us that don't understand what emotional accountability is, you go into a space, now both of y'all is overly emotional. Now it's an imbalanced space, but you want to stay into that space because you got something from it. You too emotional. You ain't emotional enough. It's about balance. You went into that space you went into that space based on fear, and brother went into that space based on love. You ain't used to what love, real true love is. That motherfucker love you with nothing. But because this person does not know how to keep that balance with themselves, and they have that wound, they have a corresponding wound that feeds to your space. You can stay overly emotional. They'll stay underly emotional. And since you think that that's what it's supposed to be, because you had that example in your life, you keep doing the same thing. This shit's deeper. It's deep. You really got to do this. You really got to tap into these aspects. Instead of you going through this dark, you going through these phases and you not understand. I'm trying to make it work. I'm trying to have a family. I'm trying to have a family because I didn't have a family. Okay. What is the basis of a family when you get to a certain point with your family anyway? You want to have a family. Family is business in that sense. We've heard Brother Pro talk about that shit plenty of times. And I agree. I was like, nigga, that make total fucking sense. Business, family is business. Everything's synonymous is just based on the layers. So if you sitting inside of your space with yourself and you saying that you want a family, what is your family structure? What is your mission statement? This is why I always talk about this LLC mentality. What is your basis or your mission statement? What is your purpose? What is your purpose? I see everybody doing this trend with I see everybody on this trend of cryptocurrency and investing. I clap to it. It's a beautiful thing. But what is the basis to it? Is it simply you following the trend because Elon Musk said some shit? Or are you really building something so when you transition, the motherfuckers behind you you're actually healing that generational wound, that generational curse, or that trauma, or that generational curse? Are you really healing it? Take thoughts into your mind of like, okay, cool. You doing all this cryptocurrency, all this investing, that's cool. But at what point in time have you sat there and really created something simple? Something simple. Have you created an account to where you only can deposit in and your child's name is on the account? Have you set up an account or accounts? Man, how many kids you have? Have you set up an account to where your children are written on the account as they're the only ones that can withdraw from that account, and all you can do is deposit into that account? And then you teach them, yo, every week or every month or however you set it up in your family trust, I'm depositing this much money into your account. I'm matching your allowance. So when you do this, when you do your chores, when you do these things around the house that you need to do, that these are part of your work, your chores, whatever you need to do, I'm going to match it and put it into this account. So you're going to get an allowance, but it's going to be half because I'm putting the other half into this account. And then you teach them that account. That's teaching them emotional literacy. Because that's teaching them financial literacy, therefore you teach them emotional literacy. Because it's going to teach them that, okay, cool, in order to get, I must do this and to keep myself into the balance. That means I must pay attention to what we're building into this space. Instead of complaining about broken homes, when are you going to deal with when are you going to deal with the aspects that hell you created, the broken home that you came in through, that broken entities that you came through, the unhealed aspects that you came through? That's what you're that's what you're using. That's what every time you create something or you do this alchemical narrative and bring something out of nothing, out of the darkness, where is it coming through? What is the stream coming through? You got you got scars from your mother, you got scars from your father, and then you having kids with another motherfucker, they got scars from their mother, scars from their father, and so y'all creating more scar babies. You creating portals. I thought about this the other day. You're creating portals for niggas that have not yet transitioned. Niggas that get stuck in the Duat. I thought about that shit the other fucking day. On the lower level, for the Christians and the motherfuckers that think family is all that shit of that narrative, they're only creating vessels. They're only taking the alchemical process of creating vessels for niggas that didn't transition. Niggas that are stuck up there. So you wondering when your kid the child comes back down, they have their own. Remember, you came down here with a soul contract. You came down here with a mission. You came down here with a mission. You came down here with your plant lessons. You came down here with that shit. So all you're doing is repeating the damn process. So you're creating gods. Are the gods that you're creating of destruction, or are they actually the gods of the next level? These are the things that we really got to start thinking about. That's the work that you really got to start doing. Those are the things these are the things that go through my mind in a constant sense, and I create content for. I create classes, I session, I coach, I do therapy sessions. These are the things that we talking about, these are the things we talking about in the one-on-ones. These are the things that we going through on the one-on-ones. Because these are the things that need to be made normal. These things must be made normal. So these things that we have made normal to hide our family secrets, to not deal with these aspects, those are the things that are getting your ass caught up. Those are the things that are getting your ass stuck. Those are the things that are creating the routes and the walls and the dolls, and I meant not the dolls, but the doors and the entities that are inside of your space. Those are the things that get fed on. Can't nothing feed on Can't nothing feed on high vibrational energy other than the high vibrational entities. So if you still inside of a space where you still feel it, you still feel oppressed, you feel suppressed, you feeling all that shit, you in a space of, you created that space so you can feed and live, exist. You created that entire space. After me doing, and this is the aspect of you doing your work, put these water bottles in the tray. After doing that work, after doing this internalized work and dealing with the family contracts and the karmic debt and clearing out family lines, dealing with the lines of the family and all this shit that I had to deal with. After dealing with these pieces, it just stopped. You will know when you have become the observer, because first it's the lesson, then it's the observation. The observation is to master the lesson, to solidify the behavior and master the lesson. That's the ultimate expression. That's the ultimate example. But first, you got to go through the lesson process. You will know when you are in the lesson you will know when you've mastered the lesson, simply because you're not reacting the same way. So you've mastered the lesson. You've mastered the experience. The observation process is being able to respond and inform. The natural boundary is set based on you being able to observe. If you can set the boundary and you can inform why that the boundary naturally sets itself. The things that you will see based on an impact of it is not your emotionals, because your emotions are in balance. You're seeing the results of you doing what you need to do. Similar to when you saw motherfuckers, like right now, we now know that the white people, the low budget white people, the rednecks and all of them motherfuckers, those are the niggas. They've always been the niggas. They've always been the blacks. They've always been the blacks. If you go and look at the original definition of black in the Black Law Dictionary, it details the white people. The definition for white is black and black is white. So naturally, as you are leaving the environment or the frequency or that level, naturally everything that was put into that space originally, when you weren't there, remember you've only been black for 157 years. You've only carried that title for 157 years. It goes back to its original program. It got to reset itself. That's what's happening now. It's a reset. The white people that we saw, Mama Panic said it, the white people that we seeing bucking up against people and trying to fight, they're the original black. They're the original definition of black people. And the longer that you hold on to the title and you're not taking ownership of what you really are, the longer that you're going to start seeing them get knocked off the same way that you used to get knocked off. And then you're going to be like, see, they're changing. They're changing the laws. They locked up George Floyd's murderer and did this. I looked at the list. I was like, nigga, that was the only one that got charged. Everybody else got acquitted. There's no progress. There's no progress. The behavior has to be maintained. The behavior must be maintained at this space for this space to exist. Your unseen is what keeps this space going. You're undealt with is what keeps these environments flourishing. It's always been you. It's always been me. It's always been you. It's always been us. You looking for the motherfucker that's been keeping you down? It's always been you. In the most simplistic way, and you want to make it more complex, yes, it's always been you. The only thing that's stopping you is you keep trying to project your innocence and not taking any accountability for the shit that's going on in your life. You don't want to take any responsibility. You don't want to take any accountability because that's going to challenge the behaviors that you have set, the behaviors that you set, the identities that you claim. You can keep doing it if you want to, but that's against your design. That's against what you came down here for. You can go protest and march and do all that shit. It ain't gonna do nothing. That's how they keep getting your ass stuck based in reaction. Keep reacting and they shall keep reacting and they gonna keep doing the same shit. They only do similar to they only do what you allow them to do. Based on your reaction. You ain't got no ownership or anything. You don't have a company. You don't understand that you are a company. I've said this plenty of times. You don't understand that you are your own, you are a corporation. Whether you want to accept your body as a corporation, you the LLC, you the brand. So if I know that I'm a brand and I'm the representation of my brand, that means everything that I do is in representation of me as my brand or as the ownership of God & Co Alchemist LLC. So that's the body, that's the environment. Papa Lucy is the chairman of fucking the owner, director, the board of operations for the God & Co Alchemist, the planet, the universe, the world that is me. Carlos, that nigga is one of the workers that work for the company. So every time Carlos go out, Carlos will always do things based to my company standard, my ownership. I own the body of Carlos. That's it. He does everything that he does. He is an instrument of my healing, my learning, my acts, my service. He is a conduit of me and what I need to have done. No one else can take ownership over him because he works for me. This is the mindset that you got to, this is the mindset and equivalent that you got to come into with yourself. And you got to deal with, similar to you having an employee and you worried about the employees and shit, the same shit that you're going to have to do dealing with yourself. You are your inner child is your employee. Your ego / inner child is your employee. It works for you. Your emotions are employed by you, or you employed by your emotions. If you're employed by your emotions, then yes, you have an external figure keeping your emotions in check. Keeping you upset, keeping you mad, keeping you oppressed, keeping you shut down, keeping you running around trying to save everybody. Yes, because that's what the program is for. That's what the system, it's systematic racism. Preserving the behavior. You act the way you act, I'm gonna act the way that I act. Until you understand that you got to change the way you act, why the fuck I got to change the way the fuck I act? Because it's naturally always going to go back to the same point of balance. Either they're going to cease to exist or you're going to continue to exist. Those doors, those emotional channels, those points of interest that you keep filling yourself with and not dealing with, it's time to start dealing with those things. It's time to start dealing with those things. You might be, if you seeing, I give you an example, how the spirit's going to work for you. You keep seeing the number 666, angel number 666, it means you are concentrating too much on the physical realm. It's time to sit there with yourself and do some work. All my numbers is on point because I'm in the right position. Every time before I do anything, I'm always in the right position because I've accepted my position. I'm open to my position. I'm steady healing. I'm healed. Now it's just now in the spaces that I go into, it's the smaller aptitudes in maintaining. That's the process when you go through the shadow work and you integrate with your shadow. Now it's just basically a level of maintaining. Doing what I'm supposed to do till it's time for me to transition off. You'll know when you're not doing what you're supposed to do because you're gonna feel this longing. You'll know when you're not doing what you're supposed to do because you're gonna feel this longing for something, this need for something. You're gonna feel this intense urge for some shit. That's how you know you're not on your. That's how you know you sliding off your square. Whenever I feel an intense urge for some shit, I know somewhere in my space I'm off of my square. This is how you learn how to read your energy. This is when I remember in the beginning, I used to do the guided meditations earlier on in the lives. I might start doing that since it just came up. And I remember I would teach people a visualization process. Look above your head and look for this. This is imagine this color above your head. All right, which way is it going and all that good stuff. I remember breaking that down. I've done a couple guided meditations. I might start getting back into that space since it's coming back up into the fold and doing what you're supposed to be doing. I looked the other day at a post, and I don't even remember who posted it or who posted it, but they were talking about like the aptitudes of shadow work. And I remember when I first came in to my awareness, I never really saw a post. I saw posts like memes about shadow work, but I never saw in-depth vulnerability and stories about shadow work. Really doing the shadow work, really what it meant. So when I became into that space of my purpose, and then I started like really doing the triggering and doing the shadow work and really posting and really going hard about those aspects and coming from the angle of no bias, now I notice that it's in that space. That's how you know you're inside of your space, because the space will naturally become what you are supposed to be. So that was an example for me that if I'm either I'm in it and I need to learn it based on reaction, or it's time for me to respond and inform. This is that understanding where you are at in your position. If you're constantly being reactive to things, that means you got some shit to work on. But on that same side, remember, because we stayed in this middle point, on that same end, if you're finding yourself in positions where it's time for you to respond and inform, and you're not doing that either, then that's when your energy is going to get siphoned through the other side. Staying in this now point and understanding your now is understanding how to balance your energy and being responsible with how you use your energy, responsible with how you behave, creating your new moral code or your mission statement as a god, as a goddess, as a titan, as that higher level being. You're going into that space, learning in that space. What are you doing with that space? Because you always have a choice. Either you're going to heal or repeat. And that leads me to the class where I thought I'd use the bathroom. That leads us to the class. I made a post earlier today. You didn't see it on my Facebook. I'm going to make another post for Instagram. But I'm putting together the courses for co-alchemy, the co-alchemy classes. One of the first classes that I will be putting together is via Zoom. It's going to be a Zoom class. I already have the payment, all that, everything for the payments for it. But it's going to be on the human design. Not only learning your human design, but learning how to operate inside of your human design. Whether in like the class is going to be set up. The first initial class or introductory class is going to be like an introduction to human design, an overall aspect to the human design, what the human design is, how it works, how you work within the human design, and then the next following classes in the human design class, the first class of the co-alchemy classes, one of the many first classes that are in the co-alchemy classes is going to be separated into your human design class. So, for example, I'm a manifestor generator. So I'm going to put together, I have a whole class set up. I'm going to have a whole class set up for manifestor generators. The examples of a manifestor generator, how to work as a manifestor generator, what it means to that aspect, then manifestors, generators, projectors, the reflectors, the different levels. Very in deep class via Zoom. It's gonna be like once. I'm gonna do it like once. It's gonna be like a once a week class. I haven't necessarily set up what time I'm gonna do it. I might do it on Saturdays. I don't know yet, but you'll have more details on that. But that's what I'm doing with that. Other classes that I'm gonna be putting together, because there's a difference. Like for me and how I've learned and what I've seen is it's cool to teach people how to heal, like you healing people and like providing that therapy, providing that space. But then there's the other aspects into really learning how to operate with the new self. So human design is going to be the first class where I'm putting together. Other classes will be coming with that. Co-alchemy secret society. The way that I'm going to deliver the book, how we're going to deliver it, class level energy, class level information, more and more detail. Y'all stay tuned for that aspect coming up, because I want motherfuckers to be, I desire motherfuckers to be the best. Other classes outside of that, once I start, I got partnerships and got conversations in the works for that, going deep into the LLC mentality, building those like family trust and things of that nature, financial things of that nature, and how it ties to that spirituality compass. Me coming to the table with the spiritual aptitudes of how it is synonymous, and then I'll have other instructors and teachers coming in, giving an aspect of like their specific niche, and then how it ties together, building stuff of that nature. Because I just want you to, because it's a very deep process that you need to get into. It's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that we avoid and we don't deal with, and then we overcompensate in the other areas. That's what I see. That's what I saw the entire time coming up, and like really looking at the conscious community, in that sense. It's a lot. I always see a lot of overcompensation. I've always seen a lot of overcompensation. And then me being in the space that I'm in now, I'm like, I can see why they're overcompensating. I can see why they're going so hard on that point, because that point corresponds to a point that they're not dealing with. I deal with the points that they're not dealing with. That's been my entire purpose as me being a manifestor generator. I'll put the link to finding your human design chart in the description after I re-edit this video. But yeah, I got them in here. You might not know which one you are. That's why you keep acting the way that you act. Yep. The 4 types. There's actually 5. There's actually 5 types. There's the manifester, there's the generator, the projector, and the reflector. The very most rare one is the manifester generator. It is the manifester. It's the characteristics of the manifester and the generator, or the top characteristics of the manifester and the top characteristics of the generator. Then you have the generator, the projector, and the reflector. Matter of fact, let me go to our page 114. I got so much shit marked in this damn book, it's ridiculous. And I do these charts. It's something. It is a service I actually offer. I do actually do these charts. But yes, the manifester, the generator, the projector, and the reflector, or the manifester, generator. What you call this? The manifester type. 2 things particular distinguish the manifestor's design from the other types. First, it is conspicuously lacks chakral definition, which immediately places manifestors at a global minority. Second, they are in their direct or indirect connections between the throat center and 1 or more or 3 remaining motors in the body. The not self theme of a manifestor is anger. The strategy of a manifestor is to inform. The signature of a manifestor is peace. Manifestors are somewhat rare, comprising of 10% of the world's population. And then we can go to, and it breaks down like when I do one of these charts, the emotional authorities of each aspect, things that you got to point out, similar to a natal chart, how I detail a natal chart. If you ever got a natal chart from me, the detail of how I do a natal chart is the same emphasis that is basically how it led me to start doing human design charts. Human design charts, very detailed. It displays the general insight of the emotional aspects. So with the human design chart and the natal design chart, you put the natal chart in your human design chart, putting these 2 together, it's a game changer into your information of yourself. You're like, nigga, now I understand, because your natal chart gives you the overview of the characteristics. Your human design chart, it gives you the details of the emotional channels to those characteristics and how to bring those into balance. That undesigned aspect, the undefined aspects in your chart, those are the things that will line up with your natal chart in aspects of, okay, this is what I need to, the natal, your rising sign and your north node, the answers and how to work on these aspects and work on these aspects, those are what are in the undefined areas inside of your human design chart. The defined areas inside of your human design chart are the things that you've already mastered, or your rising sign, your rising, your south node, your moon sign, or your satellite, or the program sign, the sign that you're programming from, your subconscious space. Those are the defined aspects inside of your chart. But yeah, y'all stay tuned, look forward for those classes coming soon on that, and many, many more classes. It'll be available for Zoom. It's going to be part of a subscription. So you subscribe to the class. I'm really not thinking that the class is going to be longer than a month. So like 1 week that's depending on how in depth we get into the topics. And then there's building into more of that nature. So stay tuned for that aspect. What else? Yeah. We got to bring this shit to the surface. If I don't talk about it, you don't talk about it, nobody talks about it, the shit doesn't heal. You don't evolve. You don't do anything. Those are the things that'll get your ass stuck here and got your ass repeating shit. When you think about base level behavior, when you really think about base level behavior, animal instinct, the animal instinct, it's the sexual trauma that has not been dealt with. When you look at everything on TV, when it's talking about trauma, and we talked about trauma for a good 30 minutes last Friday's lecture. Strippers, wet ass pussies, all of this shit is geared towards your trauma. You looking at pedophiles in the news, LGBTQIZ, the alphabet community, that's all based in you still stuck in the aspects of what gender is. So, of course, what are you going to see based in behavior? I don't disclose myself to a gender. You get triggered by it. But if you understand what gender is, then I don't respond to it. Like whenever I see, I'm no longer stuck in those agenda aspects. Like, oh my God, yeah, there's an agenda to keep us dead. No, it isn't. Because it ain't got nothing to do with male and female. It got everything to do with masculine and feminine energy. So if somebody dips to the other side, they're avoiding dealing with the masculine aspects of themselves. That's what I look at when I see it. If I see a nigga walking around like this, I know somewhere down his line, if for me to look at it in reflective in a moment and I'm seeing it, maybe there's something that I need to deal with in my masculine aspect. Maybe it's something I need to deal with. If I see maybe it's something I need to deal with in my feminine aspects, in my feminine energy. Because since I've dealt with it, I really haven't seen any outlandish shit. Once I was no longer a slave to my emotions, slave movies didn't do shit to me. And I've watched Goodbye Uncle Tom like 7 times just to watch it. And it didn't have no effect on me. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God. By the third and fourth time I watched it, I'm actually laughing at it because it looks fucking hilarious to me. Because it just reminds me of like, damn, they really can create everything. It made me think like, damn, nigga, they made a whole movie about Noah's Ark, Noah being some Viking shit, and they went to the origins of it. Instead of me responding like, yeah, they keep putting our shit in all these damn cartoons and movies. Dragon Ball Z is about us, and all these shows is about us, and they keep playing with our names. Y'all niggas sound like Birdman to me. Because you upset because, okay, cool. What is the constant? You must be involved in an emotional sense for it to work. You get your emotions under control, the shit no longer exists. You avoid your emotions, you get to see more of that. You stop avoiding your emotions, you'll see the weight of that. When you really get your emotions in that order, start adjusting your behaviors, coming into this ownership mentality, understanding your design, understanding what you're supposed to be doing, then all of that shit's going to go away. It'll still be there, but it won't phase you and it'll phase out. It's there for a purpose. Either you're stuck in reaction, so you react to it and feed it, or you're stuck in response, so now you can inform. And because either way it's gonna be there until you do what you need to do. But yeah, I want you to be the best. I desire you to be the best. I desire you to be the best. I want you to be the best. I want you really to tap into yourself. Stop getting triggered by Kevin Samuels. Motherfuckers, somebody else made a post today about Kevin Samuels about the nigga being gay. Don't care. Nigga don't like women. I don't care. Like, stop allow yourself to be triggered so you can sit there with yourself. If it's triggering you, it's something your shit you gotta fucking deal with. If it's not triggering you, leave it alone. What are you doing with it when you get it? Either evolve or repeat. I'm not coming back here with baby brain. You want to come back here? Go ahead and come back here. Some people are coming back. They need to come back. And that's cool. That's fine. It's dandy. But I'm doing everything in my power, with my power, to ensure that I don't return. Years from now, like cycles and cycles from now, when I'm sitting up there chilling there in my spot doing what I need to do, this will still be here. This content will still be here for that space. That's all you're doing. That's what you're leaving. That's what are you, at the end of the day, what are you leaving behind? Yeah. That's the key. You gotta stop. We have to stop avoiding. Mine too, like, but we wouldn't be what we're supposed to be doing. We wouldn't be able to claim the titles that we claim if we're not really doing what is needed to actually push that envelope. I'm a whole goddamn chaos titan. I'm ancient as fuck. So if I'm not acting in the matter of navigating chaos the way that I need to navigate the chaos, then it's going to consume me. You either become consumed by it or you consume it. That's Titan level in it. That's Titan shit. Titans consume. Gods create, Titans consume. I'm at the level of consuming. I'm consuming everything that comes into my space. I'm consuming it. I'm seeing what it does. I'm consuming it. I'm consuming that shit. I'm not scared of it anymore. If it comes into my space, that means I'm supposed to consume it. But even in that, that's an aspect of balance. So you don't get stuck. Most motherfuckers get stuck on that dark side nigga. So now all you consuming is darkness. But so you're consuming a bunch of shadows. So you're still not being filled. So there's no light. So your shit get real dim. Or you got motherfuckers out here consuming a bunch of light. But since they're not consuming in a balance, they get stagnant. That's how you get stagnant. That's how you get stuck. That's how you create a behavior. My behavior is fully in the aspects of balance. I cannot be what I am or claim that if I'm not doing what it takes to be in that space. There's niggas out here right now that I'm a god. I'm a goddess, but they still talk about niggas ain't shit and bitches ain't shit. How does that work? You can't be in this space with bias. We are outside of time. We've been here forever. we're outside of time. If I'm outside of time, that means if time is i.e. emotion, that vibration is emotion, is time, and my behavior or the vibration I'm on creates the behavior that solidifies me within time. That means I need to get out of that time loop, that karmic debt. I still got some debt I got on the table. And you'll be able to see that in your life. Like you see that reflect into your life. You see this shit reflect into your life. You in debt, you ain't dealing with some shit, you in a space where things are not being dealt with, or if you're in a space too long, if you're in a space and you're not dealing with what you need to deal with, that's the result of that space. You're gonna be in debt, shit ain't gonna happen for you. If you're in a space to where you know it's time for you to move out of that space, shit ain't gonna happen for you. It's only when you're in the position, it's time for you to take ownership. Maybe it's time for me to leave up out of this space because of this, and this, because shit keep happening over and over and over again. I'm finding myself, this is how you know you're in the wrong space. When you are trying to convert people, when you find yourself trying to convert people, trying to save people, trying to make people be something else, trying to change the projection, and you constantly trying to do this and you getting upset, this is what I learned for myself as a manifestor generator. And I kept doing that shit over and over and over again, and I kept getting frustrated or mad or irritated. It was my signal for me to leave that space alone. Time for me to leave it. Time for me to let it do what it do. Let it do what it do. Let it think what it think. Let it act how it act. Let me move the fuck on. Before, when that shit used to happen to me, one second. Before, when that shit used to happen to me, before when that shit used to pop off for me, it was based in that emotional wound that I still wanted to be accepted. I still had wounds. I still had residue on my heart. I still wanted to be accepted. I still was afraid of rejection. I was still, and I noticed that this shit was happening because I was stuck on physical. You will know when you're in a space and you've been there too long because your behavior becomes based in the urges of that physical. You really get stuck on the physical aspect. You keep trying to serve that urge based on a physical aspect. That means because sexual energy exchange is always your energy. So whether your addiction is to the level of physical sex, to you have an addiction, or every time you go to that space, you feel you need to drink all the time, you need to get high all the time, you got to lower your vibrational frequency to stay within that space. It's time to address why you keep going to that space. One thing that's going to happen for a lot of y'all, if it's not happened, and I experienced this shit like crazy. Remember I told you the whole homeless story? I experienced this shit and it made sense. I was like, damn, that's why that fucking happened. You're going to go into these spaces with these old individuals that you used to rock with heavy, and they're going to do something, or the spirit is going to invoke into them to do something that damn near is going to piss you the fuck off. It's about to make you mad, upset. It's about to make you feel all the energy that's within that space. You'll know if it's time for you to leave that space because it's naturally going to be put into a position to where you cannot stand it anymore. It's going to be put into a position where it can't stand it anymore. Many of us experience that in like a week, in like smaller senses, similar to take it like this. You're in a relationship. In the beginning of your relationship, Shorty was cooking, Shorty was cleaning, or he was taking care of the bill, doing all this stuff. Then at a point in time, this person stopped doing these things. And then it was from an aspect of them trying to make you upset because they don't know how to go to the next level. That's what it's like with your work. That's what it's going to be like with your healing process. You're going to be put in positions, i.e., niggas killing niggas all the fucking time, or them killing people, all these babies and all this shit. That's the traumatic response that's receptive to, first you have to learn why it keeps triggering you, and then you keep going into that space trying to stay there. Nigga, you don't fit that vibration anymore. Sis, you don't fit that frequency anymore. Why do you keep going there? That's what the universe, that's what your higher self is going to make you do. Your higher self going to make you really depressed. Your higher self, and then most motherfuckers try to make it's low vibrational niggas and energy vampires. No, it's letting you know that you shouldn't be there anymore. It's letting you know that it's time to transition. It's time to move the fuck on. It's letting you know that you're not really doing what you're supposed to be doing. We got to stop looking at this shit as good and fucking bad. It's positive and fucking negative, because it was when you were there, when you were in a lower vibration, even though that shit was very negative, it served you a purpose. So it was a positive influence. So now that you're no longer of the same frequency, of the same vibration, you're not of that same space, guess what? You don't fit it. It's always going to look augmented, unbalanced, out of place. That's how you know it's time for you to move forward. You don't have to wait for it to get to that point, because it's going to happen regardless, whether you're there or not. It's just going to change based on you looking at it directly. So we talked about particle waves. You know, you look at the wave, it's going to change. If you look at it, don't look at it, it's going to make a different design, but it's going to be able so you can see it. That's where you at right now. Everything that you see in outside, that's the result of it. If you can't see it, if you can't see the results of the shift, it's because you are still in things that you got to work on inside of the shift. If you have not seen how shit is shifting and how it's a benefit, it's because you still got some things you got to deal with. You still got some, you still have the, I got to wait till my check come on Friday mentality. I got to wait until I get my mentality. That's the best, that's the easiest way I can explain doing your work and not doing your work, taking ownership and not taking ownership. When you're not taking ownership, it's, I got to wait till my check come on Friday. I got to wait until this happened. I got to wait till this happened. But you're supposed to be you're supposed to be the manifested and setting them intentions, and you setting them goals, and you setting it up. That means you ain't really doing your work. That means you ain't really doing your work. Because if you're doing your work, you setting your intent, and you doing your work, then shit should be right on time. Shit is always on, shit right on cue. You gonna get what you need, not what you want. Ooh, I got excited off that charge. Let me do this real quick. Pop out chat. And restore chat as it tries to reconnect. Drank so much goddamn water. But yeah, as always, appreciate y'all for stopping through. Y'all stay tuned for them classes. The classes are coming very soon. Y'all stay tuned. Get ready for them classes that we gonna be putting out there, because it's time to. It's been past. It's time to really do real shit. It's time to stop the. Ooh, I'm doing it for. It's time to actually start doing something for yourself. If you have not learned any lesson with everything that's been going on and how things are going on, it's time to really start doing for yourself. I done watched 72 different videos and webinars over the last couple of weeks. They were talking about how to become the bank, all the way to creating the structure of a bank to how to make money like the bank makes money. I'm actually going to give y'all one of the secrets I learned. I'm actually going to apply it. You can go, I forgot, this shit is left mine. But yeah, you basically can go grab, you actually go get it's a certain policy, it's a certain insurance policy, because everything in the bank is an insurance policy. You get this insurance policy, you grab this insurance policy, so you got the insurance policy going on. You take the insurance policy, you put it in, then you go get a loan on the insurance policy to pay off the policy but first you take the insurance policy itself, you put it into a compound account. You pay it off with that loan. You take the loan, you pay it off. That money's still sitting in your compound interest account. That compound interest account, as it's occurring, it pays off that loan. So you pay off this, you pay off the loan. This money still sits in your compound interest account because all you're pulling out is the interest. And basically put it like this. You go get this policy for $1 million. You put it into this compound interest account. You go grab a loan based off that insurance policy, and then you pay off the loan, you pay off the policy. This money sitting in your compound interest account. Basically, you got $1 million grabbing compound interest for the rest of your life. They're not going to teach that in school. You know they're not going to teach that in school. So the excuse of they don't teach our kids financial anything in school because they won't teach you that. But you can go get the information like I did. But in order for me to use that, first I got to have my LLC in place. I got to take full ownership of myself in place. There's no more excuses for any other shit. All these narratives are dead. We're behind. We don't have enough of this. We don't have this. We need to mask this. We need to mask this. All that shit's dead and all that shit's done. I've said that shit before many times. I'm going to close out on that. There's 12-year-olds that got fucking whole companies that are making millions out the fucking week, millions a fucking month. What is your excuse? What are you not dealing with? It's time to start dealing with that internal. And if, I'm always going to say, if you're ready, you hit me up at the inbox, hit me up at Gotico Alchemist LLC, hit me up and we can start getting that. We can start doing that. We can start getting that done. Because all I want you to do is be the best. I want you to succeed. I want you to exceed all those limitations that you put on yourself. I want you to stop using the same analog way to keep doing shit. Got a lot of shit in the works. You got to change your narrative. Learn the game. As my man Derek Gray say, you got to learn the game of these wolves. Because they're only you. They're your shadows. They're your children. They have a purpose. They're going to teach you some shit. But you got to be willing to learn it. I love you. We love us. As always, I'll see y'all throughout the week.